talking to Ron Poulsen from Pangaea. So how's it going today?
Going really good. Thanks for taking the time to reach out. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem. And for anybody who's not familiar with the band, can you explain, what style of music, pertaining to the band that you guys, consider yourself as far as like genre wise or anything?
So we consider it like a '70s prog rock. So what we were shooting for in the beginning was like your Pink Floyd or your Asia. I think if you listen to the music, you can probably pull a lot of Asia influence from there. It's probably one of our biggest influences.
Awesome. And then with the name, it's such a, kind of a unique name. How did Pangea, how did that name come together?
Well, Pangaea is the landmass before it broke apart and became the continents. It was called Pangaea. So that right out of Corey's head, right before we changed the name to Pangaea, we were Arctica way 30 something years ago. We were in a CD store at the time, back when they had CDs in like record stores, and we saw an Arctica CD and they're already published. I think they were like on Sony or something like that. And we were like, oh man. So made the decision to change the name, and Corey was like Pangea, and we were just like, it just kind of fit us, everything together as one.
Yeah, yeah. I hear about that with a lot of bands. Whenever you're coming out and you're creating a band and you get a name, and especially at that time when you don't, nowadays it's a little bit easier because you have the internet and Google and all that kind of stuff. You can kind of look and see. But then, a lot of times you didn't realize. So bands would come out and have CDs or make albums and didn't realize that there was a band in maybe like in Europe or something like that with all the name. And then all of a sudden you get like a that cease and desist kind of order or something like that. I've had a couple of friends of mine who, people who've been in bands with stuff like that. So it's interesting whenever you go from that, like, from picking this band to picking another band.
Yeah. And that was kind of before we really did anything really big. Under Arctica, we did like one 4-song EP, and we cut it at the 25th track in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with a guy named Walt Bowers. We did 4 songs, and that EP was actually what got us. One of our friends here in Tulsa, Paul Clark, sent that to Robert Berry, and that's kind of what started the whole snowball effect of Pangea and where we're at today.
So you were saying, whenever you guys were creating the band, that was your ambitions or your kind of influences were bands like Asia and Pink Floyd and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like King Crimson, UK, those kind of '70s Rush, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, that's probably like our biggest, what we listen to the most.
Yeah, and then especially with that, with that prog scene, because it's kind of making its way back into mainstream again. But it had that time where you were saying like in the '70s, prog was kind of really big. Then towards the '90s, like the mid '90s, prog started getting kind of big again, where you had bands like Helmet and stuff like that that were kind of doing the prog scene. And then now, like I said, you see a lot of bands now that are kind of coming out and doing the, getting back into that prog scene. So how do you feel about that? With being in the prog scene for 30 years, how do you feel about the scene then and the scene now?
I think it's funny because we talk about this a lot. I think now a lot of bands, like even if you look at Prog Magazine, a lot of bands that they label prog to us aren't really prog. They're more instrumental or metal, or they're more pop even,
Yeah.
And you take it like Asia, that was supposed to be, they're all prog guys, but they on purpose went to try to be mainstream and pop and make hits, and obviously they had a great deal of success at it. But for us, I think a lot of people today, you say prog music and people are like Dream Theater, and that's what they think prog is, and I love Dream Theater. Don't get me wrong, one of my favorite bands, and I've been to see them so many times. I listen to them all the time, but I don't think we sound like them. I think, we're more like that Asia, Pink Floyd kind of drive. And yeah, it's like you said, Nirvana came around and killed killed metal, and country killed Nirvana, and it all goes in cycles. And now country's not popular anymore, and I kind of think that if you want to call it prog, yeah, prog is coming. It's coming back around. I think. I don't know if you've noticed that trend, but we kind of have. We've had some people since we've been back from our hiatus a little bit. Pretty much everybody we talk to, like, man, I remember you guys. And they're just really stoked about the new album. And people are like, we've been waiting for this for 20 years, and so. We played a couple shows here recently over the past couple of months, and we didn't know how. We thought we're either going to go out there and it's going to go great, or we're going to fall on our face. Well, fortunately, it went great, and it's that older high school, younger college age kid that pretty much we were playing to, and I think what we're seeing is they're kind of they're force fed, this what they want you to hear right now. I don't want to name any names, but like the Taylor Swift stuff, it's getting forced down your throat. And I think they're looking for something, and I think we're that something, to be honest with you. Something different. We all play our own instruments. There's no backing tracks. If we make a mistake, we make a mistake. There's levels to our music that are complicated, but there's levels to our music that are pretty straightforward. So I think it's accessible to a lot of people like my age, and younger people that are looking for something that's not mainstream.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of that. Going out and doing these shows. I recently saw like a band like Black Flag. You know what I mean? And the people who were there. You had your old school punk guys like me. Going to that show, but there was such a resurgence of there was more younger kids than there were older people there, and I was like that's kind of cool, like seeing like that, seeing like a lot of the thrash metal bands now. You go and you see a lot of young kids, these like 16-year-old kids, and you're like, wait, how do you even know this band to begin with? But yet that's cool, and it's cool because and the crazy thing about it is these younger kids know more of the songs and more know the lyrics than us old heads.
Well, yeah, and my kid's the same way. Like my daughter wears a Pink Floyd shirt every day, and because your parents, you're seeing at those shows, those kids are going to those shows. Their parents are taking them, and hopefully teaching them the right way. Instead of, my kids don't listen to mainstream music. They listen to prog, and like because I'm a big Pink Floyd fan. I'm a big there's a band called Brit Floyd that travels the country, travels the world actually. Does Pink Floyd music. Just have to go see them, and they have a tremendous Red Rocks every year and stuff like that. So I play their music all. They'll follow in your footsteps.
Yeah. There's been a lot of those two bands too. Like you were talking about Brit Floyd and stuff like that, with these resurgence of these bands that are like kind of cover acts, and some of them are like amazing. I just went and seen the one band called Van Halen. They're a Van Halen cover band. They're amazing. The Almost Queen that does Queen is amazing. So yeah, it's cool to see. It's cool to see like that kind of resurgence of, like you were talking about, like that the 70s music era and stuff like that. But speaking of newer stuff, you guys just released a new album, Beowulf. How's the fan response been from that? Like you said, it's been 20 some years since the last guys made an album.
It's been really good. Have you listened to the CD?
Yeah, I listened to a few of the tracks. Yeah, I liked it.
Good. Yeah, it's been really, really, really good. Everybody's like, man, we've been waiting for this. Everybody that I've talked to has been very, very complimentary. They've said things like, I've heard words like epic, rock opera. Just people are really, really complimentary. That album's got it's got your combination of your classic prog stuff, like if you want to look at something like Necromancer, or say like a Wasape or something like that. But then it's going to have songs that are more mainstream, and I think it's about the people that wrote it. So you've got songs on there like Andy wrote Wasape, right? But Corey wrote some of the stuff. Steve wrote some of the stuff that's on there. So you're going to get that different flavor or feeling. And even though someone might have brought a song in and said, like, this is basically the skeleton of how the song goes, then the rest of us kind of put our flavors into it as well. So in that group setting, it made it what it was and what you hear on the album. But overall, the general consensus that we've heard from everybody, we haven't heard anything negative yet, knock on wood. Everybody's been really, really positive about it, and they really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and then like I said, going into recording this album, how was it like recording this album with the technology and the ability to record versus when you recorded years ago the last time?
So okay, so this time, so when we got together, I don't know if you like went on the website and read our story, but like 2 or 3 years ago, we get together in Dallas. We just wanted to get together and play. So we were going to rehearse, and then we were going to go play some shows. And in the midst of doing that, I think it was either Corey or Andy was like, we should go to Roberts and record again. We kind of all looked around at each other, and we were like, wait a minute. Corey's like, man, I got some songs. And Steve's like, I got some songs. And Andy's like, I got some songs. So it turned into, okay, we're actually going to do this, And what happened was Andy has a studio in Houston, Texas, where he's got Pro Tools. So in the past, we didn't have that ability. So what we did was Andy would lay down drum tracks. Then I would fly down, because I live in Tulsa. So I would fly down, put the bass tracks on. So we had, and then, Daryl would come in and do guitars. Steve lives in Tulsa too. He would fly down and do vocals. So we put it all together through Pro Tools this time and sent it that way to Robert. And then our producer, Robert Berry, who lives in California, he has Pro Tools at his studio. He's able to pull it up. So in the past, what we would do, let's say like the very first time we ever went out to Robert's, we sent him that 4-song demo that we had made. And he's like, look, guys, come out here for like 4 or 5 days. He said, we'll take these songs, we'll take them apart, and we'll put them back together. And he goes, if you guys don't ever want to come back out here again, it's cool. He goes, at least you got a pretty good demo out of the whole thing. So, obviously we go out there. Robert had worked with Keith Emerson and Carl Palmer in a band called 3 back in the day. So we were like, being prog nerds and geeks that we are, we were into him before he even knew who we were, right? So, when he called, it was like, man, Robert Berry's telephone, So it's like, so just to be out there with him. And the joke is with us, spending 4 days or a couple of weeks with Robert Berry is like going to college for 4 weeks, because it's like 4 years of college rolled up into like a couple of weeks of like music production. And I mean, it's amazing being out there with him. It'll blow your mind, right? Every time we go out there, it'll blow your mind. But this time, what was different was, instead of, in the past, we'd go out there and he would like deconstruct the songs and help us put them back together. This time, pretty much when we sent him this edit of the Pro Tools, he might have changed 1 or 2 little things, but he didn't change anything like he really changed in the past. So I think grown as songwriters, obviously when you grow as people, like we all did, we had jobs and families and kids and everything else gets in the way for the last 20 years. We all grew up a bit, we've all remained friends. I think today we're a lot closer than we probably even were back then. We were close back then, but I think we're closer now in a lot of ways, a lot of deeper ways, because back then we were like high school buddies hanging out. We're playing in a band. Hey, this is pretty cool. We're playing in a pool hall this weekend or something like that. And now it's I don't know. It means a lot more, now I think than it did then. At least I feel that way.
Yeah. I've got to interview Robert before. I think I interviewed him like a year or 2 ago. He seemed like a really, really cool guy. How was it like, like I said, working with him in the past and then coming back kind of full circle and working with him again?
So it was so weird, because it's like riding a bike. It was no different. You walked in, the studio looked the same. I hugged him. I picked up the bass and I started playing. I mean, it was just like we never left. And it's like he's another member of the band. He's an extension of the whole process. He's one of the guys that we call, like on our team, right? And if you don't have people like that, like your sound guy, your videographer, your camera guy, people like you, and if you don't have those kind of guys, your you're going to suck, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link. So, I mean, he is just like a brother. He's like, another finger. He's like an extension of the band and what we do. And we couldn't do what we did if it wasn't for him, to be honest with you. I mean, he's very, 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 very good at what he does.
Yeah, yeah. And then, like I said, you being a bassist, and people always kind of always talk a little smack on the bass players and stuff like that. But when it comes to prog, the bass players, the bass is a completely different animal when it comes to that genre of music versus other genre of music. So yeah, how do you like to talk to people that like we'll talk about, well, you're just a bassist. Well, then come and see what I do, and then try to do that.
John Mayung, Chris Squire, Geddy Lee. I mean, we could go on for days and days and days. When I was younger, somebody asked me this question the other day: what got you into bass? And if you had asked me in the day, I would have said people like Gene Simmons. I would have said Steve Harris of Iron Maiden, and probably Billy Sheehan. Those are when I really started playing. Those are the three guys I thought I was going to be. Right. When I was in high school, I saved up $200 and I bought a Hondo Les Paul copy because I thought I was going to be Ace Frehley, right? Because the reason I started was because of Kiss. Obviously you get older and your musical taste change and things like that. And then, so, today I've progressed into things like Dream Theater, and I listen to a lot of Porcupine Tree or the Pineapple Thief, those kind of prog type like bands. So a guy that just recently played with Porcupine Tree, his name was Nate Navarro. I pay a lot of attention to him and what he does. He's a very, very, very good bass player. And, there's so much, and nowadays it's a lot different because on the internet you can just type in bass players and it brings up all these people that are just amazing, and you can, it's like having your own classroom right here on my phone, really. I mean, yeah. I can follow lessons, and you don't even have to leave your house. I sit down and play my bass all the time with people. I watch so many different people. I mean, we could do hours on just the bass players that we watch. So yeah, it's a lot that was back in the day, because back in the day you relied on like Bass Player magazine, and you had to go buy it, or Guitar Player to show you what you needed to watch, but not anymore. Everything is digital media now.
Yeah. It's so cool. Like now, like I said, when you were, 30 years, 40 years ago, when you wanted to learn to play guitar, even or bass or any of that kind of stuff, you had some magazines, but it was very hard to find. A lot of it was just you had to learn by playing by ear and just kind of fidgeting around. Nowadays, these kids can pop on a YouTube video and see somebody and play like Yngwie or something like that, and they'll just watch them and just slow it down and just watch it. And you see these kids now that are like 6-7 years old that are playing Yngwie stuff, and it's like there's no way that kids should be able to move their fingers the way that they do like that. But like I said, because by like I said, when we were doing it, you would listen to Yngwie play and you'd be like, yeah, I'm not even going to attempt to try to do that shit. But now, now that you can see it, you can kind of like go, okay, this is how he does it.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, we bought my 11-year-old daughter a guitar for Christmas, and she comes out in the living room all the time, and she'll play something. She goes, "Do you know who this is?" And we'll start laughing or something like that. Well, yes, honey, I know who he is. She'll play "Stairway to Heaven," or she'll play "Back in Black" by AC/DC, or she comes out and plays Nirvana the other night, and and I'm just laughing. But at 11 years old, I wouldn't have had the ability to be able to do that because I didn't have a cell phone with people that can show you how to do that kind of a thing. You had to find a physical teacher, or you had to find a Guitar Player magazine or something like that. So yeah, times have changed, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. And then like you said, doing all the the years that you guys have done it. Do you have a favorite tour or a favorite show that comes to mind when you think about some of the old school shows you've done?
So I'm going to date myself here, probably. You mean shows that we played, or shows that I've seen?
I mean, either or. You can do a show that you've seen, and you can show that you played.
Okay, let me tell you who I saw. In 1984, I saw Genesis on the Mama tour, and I was fifth row center, right in front of Phil Collins all night. They came out. They played for 3 hours straight, just Genesis, and it was. And I went with a friend of mine who was a drummer that I went to high school with named Corey Craig. And the two of us just sat there and stared for like 3 hours because it was mind-boggling. And to this day, that is still the best concert I've ever seen in my life. And name somebody, I've seen them, right? But I mean, it was just, it blew you away. I mean, it's amazing, right? So shows that we've played, we played, I'll tell you what we played about a month ago. We just got done playing when we released Beowulf, we played at the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame, and it was our CD release party, and it was one of our bigger shows coming back. But I don't know, it was kind of like a culmination of all the years and everybody coming back together, and just the music and the CD, everything coming back around. It was a big moment for us. In the past, there was a place here in Tulsa called the Yucatan Liquor Stand. That was a big gig for us back in the day. We played there. It was a lot of big national bands came through there. Actually, like, if you remember Saigon Kick, they were there like the week that we were there. Like, Asia actually played there like a month before we did and stuff. And so it was, it was a good place to play. But we've played every place you can probably think of. We played pool halls. We played the centers for arts and stuff here and in Houston and things like that. So the idea is talking about that moving forward. A couple of us live here in Tulsa. One of the guys lives in Beaumont, Texas, and the other guys live in Houston, Texas. So what our plan is moving forward is we're going to try to string together a string of shows in Tulsa for, say, like 2, 3, 4 nights, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday kind of thing. What we're finding is it's kind of hard to find places that play original music. So right now, if you're not a cover band or you're not like a tribute band, nobody wants to see you, and they don't want to book you. So we're having a little trouble with that. But if we're hoping to put together this thing in Tulsa. We've got a couple shows in Beaumont lined up. That there's actually a Roxy in Beaumont, and then there's an art studio in Beaumont that we played at a couple months ago. We went over great, and we had a great time, and we absolutely loved it. And then Corey has found in Texas they have these things called swing dance clubs, and what the deal is with that is about the time that college starts back up, all these kids don't have any place to go, so they go to these swing dance clubs on the weekends and stuff. So he's put together this little idea of a tour of like a week or so, playing 5 to 7 of these kind of places. So the idea is that we hit these like 3 little mini tours, like Tulsa, Beaumont, Texas, and then around Texas, and then we look our sites to do things like festivals, all the prog festivals like Prog Stock, C-Stock, all in America and abroad, because there's obviously a lot of prog festivals overseas too. We are getting a lot of airplay and stuff overseas. The Dutch Progressive magazine got us, and we got songs in rotation there. A guy actually contacted us from New Zealand yesterday, we're just getting a lot of Germany, a lot of traction in New York, and even radio play, believe it or not, and stuff. So we're like, really, and you kind of forget about that stuff. And then Corey was kind of reminding me about that this morning, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, So it's out there, and I think if the people get to hear it and see it live, it's gonna stick, because nobody's come up and like, man, you guys suck. Everybody's like, wow. So it's even one of our guitar players. I'll tell you the story. Daryl, he plays in a bunch of cover bands in Houston, and he plays in tribute bands like a Duran Duran tribute band, and he also plays in like a David Bowie tribute band. And when we played in Beaumont, after the reaction, Corey said something to him, was like, do people cheer, when you play like that with your other bands, your tribute bands and your cover bands? And he goes, they clap. He goes, but we're background music. And he goes, they're really not paying attention to you. They're kind of talking. He goes, like when we played, those kids at that art studio, they were paying attention, right? When we started playing, they were like, whoa. And they looked at us and they paid attention. And it was kind of a different interaction, between the performer and the person watching, I think, than what he was used to. Normally you're like a jukebox, and they don't care. They're just there to talk to their friends and drink and stuff. But when you actually go to see something like that, like a band like you were talking about, or someone you pay and you want to go see, there's a different connection, and there's a different interaction. And we felt that both times we played, and hopefully we build on that and grow on that. That's the idea, So
yeah, I mean, that's that. Yeah, Yeah, that scene is the same way. I mean, the same way. Over here on the East Coast. I'm in Baltimore, but I have friends of mine that are Baltimore bands and Pennsylvania bands, and I have friends of mine that are in original bands, and he's also a singer in a cover band, and he's like, dude, he gets tired of doing the cover stuff, but that's where he gets more gigs. He gets more money on those shows, and he's like, this is it's fun doing those, but he's like, I prefer playing my own original music.
You become background noise, and you just become a jukebox, is what they call it.
Yeah,
And we prefer. We did that. Back in the day, we had a big cover set. We could play for like 4 hours. And now we can play 4 hours with our own music without even thinking about it, right? So, but we don't. We really, really, really are not gonna. If we did do a cover, it would be like a pretty serious prog cover that everybody would know that, oh, that's a very, a predominant prog song.
yeah,
If we did one. But like I said, we have so much of our own music that we don't need to do it.
yeah. And you were talking a little
And
bit.
we don't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah. You were talking a little bit
Yeah.
about Europe. Do you guys do any touring in Europe before? Because I know Europe is really, really big into the prog music.
And that's the idea, is to get over there, and even Asia,
Yep.
and they are big into that over there. Yeah, that's the goal, and the goal is not to be. I was talking to somebody about that the other day. For me personally, and I feel probably for the other guys in the band, none of us really need to be like Bono in U2 or Mick Jagger in the Rolling Stones. What we want to be is comfortable and be able to support our family and families and make a living doing music, and to be able to tour around the country and the world together as friends, and be able to see places, and go to cool restaurants, and go to cool shops and things in towns we would normally not get to go to, and then hopefully get up that night and deliver a good product that people want to come and see, and enjoy. And maybe it takes them out of their day-to-day grind and bustle for a couple hours, and it takes them to someplace else, on a journey, on a musical journey, so that they can get away from the world for a little bit, before they have to get back to reality at 6:30 the next morning, kind of a thing. That's the goal. It's just and I've talked about that with people about that band. I was talking about Brit Floyd, because for the most part, you're not going to know who they are. If they're just walking around on the street during the day or something, or you see one of them in a coffee shop, I mean, I'm going to know who they are, because I'm a nerd, and I know who they are. But they're kind of just roam around the town and visit and see things and do what they want to do during the day, and they're not really going to be bothered. And that's kind of what I think we would all rather just be, like normal people. I mean, we're all really approachable, and I mean, it's not like we have, need bodyguards and don't want anybody around us and stuff. I saw Bon Jovi getting in his SUV the other day, and he had like 20 guys standing around him, look like they're all ex-military. You can't get near the guy, you know what I mean? And I don't want that, I want to be able to sit down like this and talk to people,
Yeah.
and hear your story, and they hear my story and stuff like that. That's what we want, it to be more personable, and on a more human level, and not so detached,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, one of the questions I always ask, especially when it comes to bands that that are eager of doing this kind of stuff and doing all this crazy stuff, if you could go on a tour right now, with you guys opening up with two bands that would automatically say yes, we'll take you, what two bands would you want to go with?
Oh man, me personally, right now, if you ask me right now, I would want to go out on tour with the Pineapple Thief and Porcupine Tree. And I don't know if you know who they are, but if you don't, I would suggest you look them up. They're very proggy, but they're like my two favorite bands right now. I would love to have toured with Pink Floyd. Obviously, that's probably one of my favorite bands of all time. Asia, of course, we won't be able to do that now because John passed away. But we would have loved to go out with ELP, a King Crimson band. We'd eat that up. I think though, if you listen to our music and our back catalog, we always joke we have the more prog stuff, and then we have the more mainstream stuff. And it's like, if we needed to play to someone who's more mainstream, then we could play these songs, and we could fit in there. And if we needed to play something like a prog festival where no one wants to hear that mainstream stuff, they want to hear all of our weird stuff, well, we could play that too. And I think that's probably the good thing about Pangaea is that it's not just this one kind of, it has to be like this kind of music. It can be different things, you know.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a lady yesterday about that, and it has different meaning for different people, because she asked me what a song meant because she felt it meant like this. And Corey and I have had this conversation. It's like, well, that song may mean something to you, but it doesn't mean the same thing to that person, and it doesn't mean the same thing to that person. And I think that's probably the biggest compliment for a songwriter. They write a song and they put it out there, and then someone finds meaning in it. And it doesn't have to mean something, the same thing for everybody. But as long as you find what that meaning is and it's for you, then that's what it is. And I think that's Corey's main goal, and probably all of our main goals when he writes songs like that. You know, find your meaning in it.
Yeah.
And that's another good part of Pangaea. You know, it's finding your meaning in our songs. You know,
Oh yeah. And you know, and another question I always ask too. It's kind of a loaded question. It's sort of like asking, you know, which child you like best. But
are you there?
Oh yeah, can you hear me? I think it might see if it froze.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hey, there we are.
Yeah, I think your screen froze for.
Yeah, we froze for a second. Okay, but yeah, what I was asking was if you could take one song of your, you know, of all the songs you've wrote and put it in a time capsule, and civilization finds it years later, what song would you want them to hear?
That's going to be my favorite Pangaea song, and that's going to be "The Fall of Rome" off the first album. That's the big, to me, that's kind of our epic song, and it's a hard song, and it's probably a song we haven't played in 20-something years. It's something that we're going to get together here in a few weeks in Houston, and it's the first song to dissect and put back together. I don't know about all the other guys in the band, but for me, I feel like that's our stairway to heaven, if you will, our Detroit Rock City, or rock and roll. That's our big song. And if you go back and listen to the back catalog and listen to that song, I think you'll probably be able to figure out why on your own pretty quick. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, anything else you want to say to the people, say to your fans before I let you go?
Well, thank you for your time. First off, I really appreciate it. Go to our website, pangaea.band, and all of our links, everything is there. You know, our store is there. If anything new comes up, tour dates and stuff like that, they'll be posted there. Corey keeps up with that pretty much daily. So yeah, go check it out. Go check out the new CD. Go check out the other CDs, and look for us when we come out and play.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Hopefully those Texas dates do very well, and you guys are able to tour around. If you guys come over to the East Coast, over towards my way, it'd be cool to to see the band. And I like doing these kind of interviews, but I personally like doing in-person interviews. I'm a get together kind of person, so it'd be cool to get to talk to you in person.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Hey man, well you have the good rest of your day.
You too. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Oh, no problem, man.
Thanks.
Yep.